Hello, fellow tubers. It's Miss R here, and we are on the final lesson of the week. So we're going to be looking at mastering question 5. I'm going to expose you to descriptive and narrative writing and looking at how you can get high marks in both of them. So you will be asked to choose one task that will require you to write either a description or a narrative. Now, a description is a spoken or written account of a person, object, or event. But a narrative is a spoken or written account of connected events, which is basically a story. Now, the reason why I've got this definition here for you is because some people do get confused with the two. A description, you're looking at one particular moment, whereas a narrative kind of moves on from that moment. It has a chain of events that are linked together. So you want to make sure that if you choose a description, it doesn't turn into a narrative because you're not following the correct form. So just make sure that you've identified which one you want to do and make sure you're consistent with it. It's your choice, to be honest with you. So the first thing that you want to do as a revision strategy is you want to create a word bank. Now, this isn't something that I can really teach you. It's just basically you getting a list of words, familiarizing yourself with them, especially ambitious vocabulary, so that you're not always saying the obvious things, and your vocabulary, especially if it's ambitious, will get you higher marks because that's in the mark scheme. Now, what I've done here is I've given you some words. I've given you colours, dramatic verbs, emotions, adjectives, words to create an interesting character, adjectives for describing food, sound nouns, and these are something that you can use. So you can either pause the video now and get a few down, and you can keep look at the definition of them and keep practicing their spelling, and also seeing how you can use them in your own examples of creative writing. Or if you've got the whole booklet for the chain of lessons for the fox and the goat, then it will be in that booklet for you to go back on. So I'll leave that there for you. Moving forward, what we're going to look at first of all are sentence starters. Sentence starters are very, very important. I definitely believe that if you vary your sentence starters, then you will get higher marks. What I find as a teacher is that there are many people, when it comes to creative writing or narrative writing, it's just always the same sort of, as I look around, I see this, the man did this, and then he said this. And it's never really a variety of different sentence starters, and it kind of seems a bit boring. Not only that, there seems to be the same sort of sentence lengths as well. So let's start with this. I'm going to read this extract to you. This sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. 5-word sentences are fine, but several together become monotonous. Listen to what is happening. The writing is getting boring. The sound of it drones. It's stuck. It's like a stuck record. The ear demands some variety. Now, let's read this. Now listen. I vary the sentence length and I create music. Music. The writing sings. It has a pleasant rhythm, a lilt, a harmony. I use short sentences and I use sentences of medium length. And sometimes when I'm certain the reader is rested, I will engage him with a sentence of considerable length, a sentence that burns with energy and builds with all the impetus of a crescendo. The roll of the drums, the crash of the cymbals, sounds that say, listen to this, it is important. So write with a combination of short, medium and long sentences to create a sound that pleases the reader's ears. Don't just write words, write music. Okay, so we're going to be looking at sentence lengths and different sentence starters as well. So as the passage on the previous slide proves, it can get pretty tedious when a writer uses the same sentence structure over and over again. After a while, what they say gets lost in the monotony. So we need to vary our sentence structures to jolt the reader's attention every now and then. We can do this in a number of ways. Number 1, we can use a combination of simple, compound and complex sentences. Number 2, we can vary your sentence openers by starting with an adjective. For example, ferocious waves heaved and surged like mountains in motion. We've got a pronoun. She suddenly became aware of how alone she really was. Can start with an adverb. Hastily, she scurried along the pavement like a lost animal. You could start with a verb maybe. Chortling mightily, William could not suppress his sheer delight. Or a connective. Initially, she had come to enjoy a peaceful walk in the settling evening sun. The third thing that you can do to change a sentence structure is to change the length and the number of words, just as I showed you in the example in the previous 2 slides. So we're going to test this out. You're going to write 8 sentences about a topic that I'm going to choose. Your sentences should combine to create a very short story. It's going to be a nice little task to help you out, and you'll see the difference. So for each sentence, you'll be given a different instruction telling you how to structure that sentence. You may be instructed on the kind of word to start with, for example, adjective, adverb, verb, pronoun, connective, or the number of words that you can use. But before you do this, I'm going to show you an example so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I will give you a topic and the subject might be something like driving. So when it comes to driving, my first instruction might be to start with an adjective, which is a word that describes a person, place or thing. So in your sentence might sound something like this. Blue light zoomed close behind them. So don't forget you're talking about driving and you're starting your first sentence with an adjective and the adjective is blue. My second instruction might be start with an adverb for your next sentence, which is a word that describes how something is done, usually ending in ly. So your next sentence might say something like, frantically, Susie slammed on the brakes. The next instruction might be start with a pronoun, which is a word that replaces a noun. For example, he, she, I, me, you, and they. And your sentence might start something like this. She clutched the steering wheel, her knuckles white against the black emptiness of the windscreen. The next instruction I might say, use only 12 words. Mum, we should have stopped at those red lights. Bill sighed warily. That's a sentence with only 12 words. And finally, I might have said, start with a connective, which is a word that shows a link between 2 sentences. And you might have written a sentence that says, initially, she was quite a competent driver. So that's kind of what you're going to be doing. And that's going to be altogether on the right hand side. That would be your little short story. But you're going to do 8 sentences. I've only done 5 here. So your subject is going to be fun fairs. So use this picture to give you inspiration as to what you're going to write. And don't forget, there's no limits to what you could write, what part of the fun fair you could write about. It's up to you. So here are your first 4 instructions. So the first sentence, I want you to start with the word the. And if you want to challenge yourself within that first sentence, I want you to use a selective and ambitious adjective in your sentence. Number 2 is start with the word earlier and see if you can use a selective and ambitious verb in your sentence as well. Number 3, I want you to start with a verb. And for your challenge, use imagery, for example, personification, metaphor, simile in your sentence. Number 4, start with an adjective, a word that describes a person, place or thing. And for your challenge, use a different sense in your sentence. So you're going to write 4 sentences. See if you can do the challenges for each sentence. And I'd like you to spend no more than 8 minutes on these 4 sentences. Don't forget, we got 4 more in a bit. So pause the video now and have a go at these 4 sentences. Okay, here are the next 4. So start with an oppositional connective, for example, however, or alternatively, or on the other hand. And your challenge is to be considerate of your word's sounds. Number 6, start with a pronoun, which is a word that replaces a noun. For example, he, she, I, me, you, or they. And your challenge is to actually use alliteration in this sentence. Number 7, use only 9 words in this sentence, but you cannot use the word the. That's your challenge. And number 8 is start with a verb And your challenge, this is the concluding sentence. How will you like to end your story? So again, spend no more than 8 minutes on this task. Pause the video now. Okay, so now we've looked at sentence openings and a bit of the structure. We want to look at punctuation, because punctuation is a very, very big part of your creative writing. Punctuation can increase your marks if you vary it and you use it appropriately for effect. But first of all, let's see if you actually know what these punctuation marks are. I'd like you to pause the video and see if you can match the punctuation mark to its definition. If you don't want to write the actual definitions down straight away, what you can do is you can number the punctuation marks and number the definitions and match them up that way. Pause the video now, spend no more than 5 minutes on that. Okay, so you should have got a colon, introduces a quote or follows a statement or shows the start of a list. Semicolon, used to separate things in a long list or to contrast or link two ideas. Brackets to add extra separate information into a sentence. Ellipses to marks indicating missing words or a longer pause. Comma, separating items in a list or separate a main clause from a subordinate clause. Apostrophe used to indicate either possession or missing letters or numbers. And dash can be used like brackets to add extra information into a sentence or introduces an afterthought. So pause the video now and check your answers. Okay, so when we are punctuating our sentences, we are punctuating for accuracy or for impact. Now, impact is better, but accuracy is very important. You have to make sure that your punctuation is accurate or you will not get higher marks in your question 5. You will actually get marked down. So, I've just looked at level 4, level 5 and level 6 in terms of the mark scheme. It's not grades, but obviously level 6 will get you higher grades. A level 4 response for question 5 shows that you understand how to use a range of common punctuation marks accurately and for impact. Level 5, you understand how to use a wide range of more unusual punctuation marks accurately and for impact. And level 6 is to understand how to use a wide range of more unusual punctuation marks accurately and to contribute meaning to your writing. So you can't really get to the impact part unless you've got the accuracy part right. So when I say accuracy, I mean accurately basically means that you can punctuate correctly. This will get you a level 5. And when you punctuate for impact, you use particular punctuation to create meaning and possibly a particular effect on the reader. This can help you to get a level 6. So that's the highest level within the mark scheme. So what I'd like you to do right now is we're going to read the extract together. I want you to identify and explain the various punctuation marks used. Think about what they do, how they help to organize the text, what effects they create, and link back to the character's thoughts and feelings. These are the kind of annotations that you want to make. So what you might want to do is, if you don't have this extract in front of you, if you don't have the booklet, maybe just list the punctuation that you can identify and then make notes on it next to it. So this is the extract. The dog stared at the space opening out before him. It seemed a boundless world of opportunity. This must be the freedom they speak of, he thought to himself. The idea alarmed him. What should he do now? Instinctively, he turned to look behind him. Grey tarmac pavement, a bin fouled with unspeakable detritus, thuds and shrieks of ham-fisted children in the distance. Nothing there but the past, begging for his abandon. Go. Tentatively, he lifted one paw off the tarmac and into the warm, sandy embrace of the earth. It had been heated by the sun. Still, he shivered from this unexpected sensation. It was time for him to be his own master and move forward. Move, he commanded himself. Move now. Okay, I'd like you to pause the video now, and I'd like you to identify the punctuation marks and make some comments on it. Spend no more than 10 minutes on this task. Okay, so here's some examples of what I've found. You've probably found more. So I've looked at the semicolon. I said it connects the topic of these two sentences together. It reflects his unlimited freedom and sense of overwhelming opportunity. I've looked at the colon, which adds information about what he saw behind him, describes the dingy, unpleasant place he is used to and what he feels he needs to get away from. I've looked at the exclamation mark, which adds a tone to a voice, shows how determined he is to make his own decisions and how angry he is that he is second guessing himself. I've looked at the dash, which gives additional information on the sensory description provided before, describes how warm the feel of the earth is and how different it is from what he's used to. And the question mark is used to create a rhetorical question, shows how indecisive he is at this moment, and reveals his fear of the unknown. Pause the video now and add to your notes. Okay, so now I've got 5 tasks for you. The first one is to add a short rhetorical question to that sentence underneath. The second one is to look at those 2 sentences and use commas to separate the main clauses and the subordinate clauses in both of those sentences. The third is to change a full stop into a semicolon to link 2 related ideas. The fourth task is to add a colon to introduce the list and semicolons to separate the items within the list. And the fifth one is to change a full stop into a dash to introduce an afterthought. So I want you to spend no more than 7 minutes on that task. Pause the video now and have a go. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to create your own checklist. And the reason why I say this is because I don't want to tell you exactly what devices, what sentence starters, what punctuation you should use in your writing, because you need to create your own style of writing. However, what I do want you to do is consider this. So what you might want to do right now is pause the video now and choose some of these devices, punctuation marks, sentence starters that you would want to practice for the foreseeable future until your exam, so you know exactly how to use them effectively. So pause the video now and have a look at these and pick a few. I would say try and pick 9. And I think whenever it comes to your question 5, whenever you're practicing a question 5, when it comes to your exam, you can write a list of those 9 things that you're going to definitely include in your piece of writing. Pause the video now and have a look at them. Okay, so description practice. You may be given an image or just a topic and will be asked to write a description suggested by the image or the topic. Here is an example. So I've given you an image here, and your task might be to write a description as suggested by this picture. It will usually say as suggested because it doesn't want you to just focus only on this picture. It might want you to use your imagination. So 4 tips for writing a description. Number 1, focus on 4 aspects of the image and turn into 4 paragraphs. Number 2, use your imagination. You will need this to describe senses and bring the image to life. Number 3, use at least 3 different punctuation marks, sentence types, language devices, sentence openers, and sentence lengths. And number 4, use ambitious vocabulary. So what I'd like you to do now is you are going to pause the video and you're going to attempt to write this description. I want you to spend 45 minutes on writing this description, writing your 4 paragraphs. Don't forget, you might want to spend 5 to 10 minutes planning. Okay, so pause the video now and have a go. So I hope that you've had a go at this task. It's good to practice. The best thing that you can do in English is to keep practicing, and practice makes perfect, basically. So what I did for you is I wrote you a response, and I'm going to read it to you. A gentle breeze rustled the last few leaves left on the trees. Bare branches stretched across the dull autumn sky. The sun struggled to shine through the dark clouds. The floor was a golden pathway from the debris of fallen leaves. A cacophony of burnt yellows and deep ambers mingled together in the late afternoon. People waded through the multitude of leaves as they crossed the park. Children ran, kicking up explosions of reds, yellows, and oranges. Laughter and giggles hung in the air as families enjoyed their day out. Wrapped tightly in scarves, hats, and gloves, the chilly air could only bite at their exposed noses. Rosy red cheeks adorned each smiling face as they were creating new and exciting memories to look back on. On a bench just to the side of the park, an old lady sat deep in thought, looking at the families around her. She recalled a time when her husband would swing their daughter around with ease. He would carry her through the park on his shoulders like she weighed nothing. "Faster, Daddy, faster!" She would always shriek in happiness. The lady's eyes swam with ghosts of the past. A smile of longing played on her face. He had been taken from her abruptly. Unfairly, she would always remember his warm embrace on days as chilly as this. Slowly the sky darkened as the clouds joined together, completely blotting out the last rays of sun. A light drizzle began to fall over the park. Leaves clumped together, squelching under people's feet as they began to hurry home. In the distance, a flurry of colour could be seen: gold, maroon, bronze, and auburn. Winds began to whip wildly, sending the last few stragglers scurrying home. It would not be long until winter arrived. So pause the video and look at what kind of devices, sentence openers, sentence lengths, punctuation I've used, and think about how you could have improved yours. Okay, so here's just a few examples of what I included. I included a lot more, but I just wanted to identify a few. So in red, it's my different sentence starters. So bear is starting with an adjective. He is a pronoun and slowly is an adverb. I used a dash, yellows and deep ambers. Those are adjectives within my sentence. Scarves, hats, and gloves, I've used commas to make a list. Faster, Daddy, faster, I've used dialogue, and I've also used an exclamation mark. A light drizzle began to fall over the park. That's a simple sentence. Leaves clumped together, squelching under people's feet as they began to hurry home. That is a complex sentence. Winds began to whip. That is personification. So what I'd like you to do is look back on your response and see if you can identify exactly where you've used specific punctuation, different sentence openers, and sentence types and lengths. Pause the video now and spend about 5 minutes on that. Okay, so now we're going to look at narrative writing. So you may be given an image or just a topic and will be asked to write a short story or story openings suggested by the image or topic that was given to you. What you need to remember, always remember and never forget, is that if you choose to write a story, you must remember how a story is structured. If you are expected to write a story opening, you kind of want to stop at the end of your rising action. You don't really want to reach your climax because it's just a story opening. So what we've got is exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement. And what I'd like you to do is pause the video now and make notes on each aspect of the story. You might want to spend a few minutes on that. I wouldn't say write it out word for word, but try and reduce that information. Okay. So now that you know how a story is structured, we're going to try and write a short story. We're not going to do a story opening because I feel like that's a lot easier, because you know that most likely you can leave it on a bit of a cliffhanger. But when you're writing a full story, a short story, you want to make sure that you have included as much as possible. So you want to sort of combat getting your exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement within your short story. And it's not always easy, but it's just making sure that you've got your description of certain events within there, just not waffling too much. I think that's what some people struggle with when it comes to story writing. You want to write at least 4 paragraphs and plan out what you will write about in each paragraph. That would be the easiest thing for you because it will stop you from waffling and it will stop you from including additional information that you didn't need. You will also, again, you'll need to use your imagination. You need this to describe senses and bring the image to life, or the topic to life. Use at least 3 different punctuation marks, sentence types, language devices, sentence openers, and sentence lengths, and use ambitious vocabulary. So the next 3 points is exactly the same as if you was to do a description, because you still need to describe within your story. So the topic is, the task is to write a story with the title alone to submit for a competition. So that's going to be your task. Now, I would like you to attempt to plan and write your story in 45 minutes. Time yourself on this and don't forget what you need to include. Pause the video now and have a go. So I have an example for you in response to this task. So what I've done is on the top right of this slide, I've got my plan. So I've started off with a bit of a brief. A group of survivors from a nuclear holocaust, mainly focusing on a young woman with their baby. That's what I've decided to write about. Don't forget, it's up to you what you write about. So my first paragraph, I've decided to only write 1 sentence within this paragraph. My second one is an introduction with a slight description of where they're located, which is a tube tunnel. And I'm going to talk about how the tunnel smells and sounds, also how there is no real light, and describe the group. Paragraph 3, I'm going to zoom in on the main character, describe the baby being held, leading to a flashback. Paragraph 4, I'm going to actually write my flashback to before they were there. Paragraph 5, I'm going to finish. I'm finishing and I'm going to try to leave on a cliffhanger. And paragraph 6, I'm going to make a comment on the first 1 sentence paragraph that I actually did at the beginning. So let me read it to you. They were alone. Their old lives had irrevocably changed in the blink of an eye. The tunnel stood silent apart from the sounds of whining echoing in the cold air. An odour oozed through the air, filling their noises with putrid scent, a mix of burned materials too awful to contemplate. Old lights flickered in the distance like Morse code, sending them a signal from nowhere. They all sat around a dimly lit fire, fighting to live, fighting to hold on, fighting the urge to simply die. A young girl sat with them, holding something wrapped in layers, something small and motionless. It kept letting out a little whimper, quiet and faint. It was almost like the life was being sucked out of it. The young woman held it tightly while small water droplets trickled down her face. She remembered that morning 2 weeks ago, one that had started out like any other. It had been an average day. Blue-filled sky, birds chirped contentedly, and the streets were booming. The girl was on her way to work like every other day. She was just another silhouette in the hordes, oblivious to everything around them like mindless drones. Until one sound changed that. It was a sound so foreign to the crowds of commuters that it hadn't been heard in 74 years. Once it bellowed out, rising up and down, calling out its alarm, people's spines shivered with the sudden dread of realization. She closed her eyes tightly. She was not able to bear the thought of what had happened next. The panic, the chaos, the mushroom cloud rising on the horizon. She wondered to herself whether she could wish it all away, bring back her old life and make everything the way it was. She opened her mouth to cry, but no sound came out. The girl continued to sit, just thinking about that one fateful day where everything changed. A stream of water trickled slowly down her face onto the thing she was holding. The small object left out a small cough, and at that moment the girl never felt more alone. They were all alone together. Okay, and that is my short story there. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to identify what punctuation marks, sentence types, language devices, sentence openers and sentence lengths I have used. And maybe if you can just number the lines and say what's been used and where. And that will just help you to sort of see where I've used these techniques and approaches to create an effect. What I'd also like you to do is compare mine to yours and see how you could have improved yours as well. But I'd just like to say thank you so much if you had a look at all of the lessons for this week. I really, really appreciate it. I'll be even more appreciative if you could like, comment and subscribe. And let me know what else you'd like for me to add to this channel, because I'm happy to do so. This is a new hobby of mine and I'm happy to help everyone. I know we're in very weird times at the moment, and anything that I can do to help those, especially in their GCSE year, I'm happy to do so. But yeah, thank you so much guys, and I will see you next week. Bye.